So I hope very much that all of you will help make next Tuesday the biggest voter turnout in Indiana Democratic primary history.
A lot of parents think their kids are too idealistic when it comes to Bernie, or think, oh, you know, you're being sold a bill of goods. Why did you listen to your daughter and think, oh, maybe it's not unrealistic?
Because she's an intelligent woman, and I raised her to be a free thinker. I used to be formerly the opponent's supporter, and once I saw his platform and her history, there's no going back. You know, he is the real deal. I'm just passionate, but her passion is what set me on fire. She had to have an ankle replacement, so she had surgery in February, and yet she was going door to door yesterday in the rain, in the cold, to canvass for Indiana.
We were in a neighborhood that was cracked sidewalks, so I was hobbling with the cane. Okay. Wiped the tears out of my eyes to hit the last couple houses, and I don't know, the cast actually, I think, helped Bernie. Like, wow, you must really believe in that guy. And I'm like, I want a better future for my kid.
No president alone can make the changes we need. We need millions of people standing up. Standing up and fighting back and telling the entire world that in this country we are going to have a government that represents all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors.
Do you think that Hillary Clinton, she keeps talking about expanding Obamacare, do you think her policy prescriptions will be enough?
No, and I don't believe a word she says. She makes all kinds of promises, and then as soon as the campaign's over, sorry about it. So,
if she's president, where do you see us?
All right, back on the Young Turks election coverage. Ida Rodriguez joins us. Yes!
You got a Latina. You have to today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it turns out you guys might make all the difference.
Exactly.
According to early voting, Latinos are everything. I'll give you a sense of how much of a difference the Latino vote might make. There's already been more early voting from Latinos registered in Florida this election cycle, just in the early voting, than there was in the entirety of the Latino vote in 2012 in Florida.
Yeah.
So that is enormous. It's enormous. It's up 150%. So more Latinos early voted this time than they voted for the entire election in Florida in 2012. So
that worries me, though. I'm from Florida, so you know Orlando is Puerto Rican, very Puerto Rican, but Miami is very Cuban.
And it's Republican, usually, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing about Hispanics.
Trump might break that.
Yeah, they don't identify with immigrants because they are, they don't have, immigration isn't their issue.
It was a different form of immigration.
Because they literally get amnesty.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing, by the way? Let's just pause for one quick second on that, and then we'll get into all of the things we're going to do in this hour. But there's only one group that's allowed amnesty in America, and it's Cubans.
Yeah.
The minute you're here, you have complete amnesty. You can become a citizen, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to have any documents. You don't have to have any papers. You're immediately granted amnesty. And they're the ones who are most Republican, saying everybody else needs papers. Yeah. And how we cannot allow amnesty except for the one I got immediately.
Many of them
amazing
identify white. So my father, my biological, I'm an anchor baby. So my biological father is Dominican. He got deported, no criminal record, never been able to come back. My stepfather's Cuban and came through his political asylum. And I think the laws are horrible because I would keep my dad over my stepdad any day. I think my stepdad should go back.
It's a serious issue, but you made it funny, which is very normal. So, look.
In 2008, 67% of Hispanics voted for Barack Obama, while 31% voted for John McCain. In 2010 midterms, 60% of Hispanics voted Democratic, 38% voted Republican.
So it'll probably continue that upward trend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just want to be clear about two things. Number one, look, it's not a diss on all Cubans, of course not, right? Anna's husband's Cuban, and he's a great progressive, yada yada, right?
Ricky Ricardo.
But we're talking about voting trends, and we're talking about what's right and not right. So why does one particular nationality get amnesty, whereas everyone else has to play by different rules? And I know why, because of the communism in Cuba, et cetera, but it's fundamentally unfair. That's what we're pointing at. Yeah. Secondly, I want to be super clear about the debate we had in the last hour. I just want everybody to realize I am no way saying I am morally superior to anyone else. The argument I was making is that people who say they're morally superior for not voting for Hillary Clinton are not correct. So I'm just want to be super clear about that, okay? So I'm not trying to lord over you, but I'm saying if you're going to try to lord over me, then we're going to have issues. Okay?
We're against lords.
That's right.
At TYT. We don't like lordship.
But I was just talking, I'm sorry, I was just talking about that because I'm so tired of, I work in the field with Jimmy as a woman. Women are held to a higher moral standard. And when I keep hearing this, Hillary is corrupt, Hillary's this, she's a politician, like they've all been corrupt. Like what is so, I want you to tell me specifically why you don't like Hillary. And the reality of it is that you don't like her because she has a vagina. There are people who
That's
have
just one of the things that I don't like about her.
no, but there are
She
people
could have had
who
it removed.
Well, I mean, now, yeah, but and I'm not saying that people don't have just reasons for not being Hillary supporters. I just think that there is an abundance of uninformed people who are making these statements and talking about this woman, and they cannot articulate why they don't like her, and it's because she's a woman.
I think that you're about to open up a big can of worms.
I will say there's at least some people for whom I think that is true.
That is true for a lot of people. There are definitely a lot of people.
And we saw a lot of that in the primary.
Yes, a lot of people who are against Hillary Clinton, and they don't really have good basis. But there's also a lot of people
Absolutely.
who are against Hillary Clinton, but probably voting for her, who have a lot of legitimate
I'm
criticism.
not a pro.
And some people who were both.
Hillary. I was Bernie all the way.
Oh, see, there you
go.
go.
So yeah, I'm not. But what I'm saying, as a female comic, I work in the realm that for being. So Bill Burr can do the same thing I do, and they'll say, "Oh, he's powerful. He tells it like it is."
Yes.
When I do it, it's like you need to tone it down.
You do need to tone it down. We like a nice lady.
Is that asking so much?
I mean, no, I don't want to go to sleep with Bill Burr. Come on, he's a nice guy, but anyway.
Okay, all right. I'm going to tempt fate here by asking you one quick question to Jimmy on this on what Ida brought up there, because look,
Bill Burr.
So I was against Hillary Clinton in the primaries because she's part of the same systemic corruption as everybody else is, and I'm tired of that systemic corruption, and I want to end it. And we happen to have a wonderful choice of one guy who was against systemic corruption and was against it for 40 years. I mean, what a gift from the gods in a sense, right? And so that was an easy choice for me. But do you think Hillary Clinton is in any way worse than everyone else who's involved in that systemic corruptions, the Jeb Bushes, the Marco Rubios, the Chris Christies? Do you see
to me?
Yeah, that's to you.
I think she's the champion. I think she's the heavyweight champion.
Oh, really? And you think so too,
especially
John?
the Clinton
Of course,
Foundation.
she's more tied in with all of them.
Yeah, she was on the board of Walmart, by the way, and the Clinton Foundation. Those emails show there was some pay-to-play stuff happening, and even Robbie Mook and Neera Tanden were like out of their minds, like, why are you doing this stuff? This is blatant. This looks corrupt on its face that you're doing it now.
That's
So she's more
interesting.
corrupt than Richard Nixon.
Say again?
You find.
I don't know about that.
So you know what is funny is that a lot of people, in fact, I was watching the Chris Hayes show a few months ago, and they were all sitting around after Hillary had locked up the nomination, so they felt free to talk about her more. And they were all saying, why is she doing all this horrible stuff? People who supported her. And then they went to this, someone said that she's the female Richard Nixon, and nobody pushed back on it. And I played it on my show. Look, no, Joan Walsh was on that panel. Sam Cedar was on that panel. They said that she's a female Richard Nixon, and everybody just was like,
So not worse than Richard Nixon, but just as bad.
I think
would
she's
say-
worse than the other examples you gave, only because she's been able to. I mean,
Yeah,
No,
she's
I
been
don't
in the
agree.
White.
I don't agree. So look,
Then
here's the
Marco
thing.
Rubio?
Yeah, absolutely. No, she's not worse. So look,
I don't mean worse in every sense.
No,
I mean,
we're talking about
has
corruption.
access to more.
We're talking about corruption. No, look, I get it. Look, I would argue that Hillary Clinton is unfortunately a great symbol of the corruption. Okay, and I would argue to your guys' point, and I would argue, and I get the argument that she's taken more money well, the Clintons, to be fair, Bill and Hillary Clinton have taken more money than literally almost anyone else.
Yes.
They've taken $3 billion in terms of campaign donations, directs money in speeches, and Clinton Foundation. Now, but they have this giant foundation, right, which skews it a little bit because that's where the majority of the money went, okay? So I get all that. But if you think that Marco Rubio or any of those guys are any better, you're crazy. Marco Rubio
I said only because she has
would
had
do
anything to
anything his donors
If
told him.
Marco
to.
Rubio had been
Okay.
Secretary of State and had been in the White House, he would be worse. But he just hasn't had the chance yet.
Yeah, and so like even Ted Cruz, who claims to be a populist and above the corruption, no, the Mercers gave him $13 million. It's this dad and daughter combination, Robert and Rebecca Mercer. They're big Wall Street players. And they gave him $13 million, and he did everything that they wanted him to do, word for word. And then when he for his own political gain, he didn't want to endorse Donald Trump. And after the convention, they pulled him aside and say, hey, Ted, remember who the fuck you work for.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Ted Cruz was like, oh, yeah, of course, I meant I endorsed Donald Trump.
When they wouldn't let him go into their room.
Yeah. So, and that's right, they wouldn't let him in the room after his convention speech.
Yes.
And then he felt humiliated because he had displeased his bosses. So fuck those guys. They're also, they're 100% corrupt. Hillary Clinton is the symbol of corruption, has taken the most amount of money, but I bet I could find 2% where she's not corrupt. So I would argue all of those Republicans are worse.
Either way, we need to drain the swamp.
Would you say, though, that women are just held to a higher standard than men?
Women have a tougher time at everything, in comedy for sure.
No, and
Definitely.
I mean, and just
in
with
politics, sure. I think women have a harder time. If they have these, oh, you can't be bitchy, you can't be this, you have to watch what you wear, you're smiling enough. It is a lot tougher to be a woman, just in general, and as far as those things go.
Whereas Jimmy can dress shitty all day long and nobody cares.
Right.
When was the last time Jimmy smiled? Come on.
He just did. He was beaming a few minutes ago. He had an epiphany.
Okay, and last thing I'll say about the issue of women having a tougher in politics, right? I don't know about corruption held to a higher standard. That's a fair point, but I'm not, as this conversation
I don't mean
indicates.
with regards to factual information about corruption. I'm talking about the fact that with her, I don't trust her. She's not warm. They want her to be like Granny. Like she's like, but with Donald Trump, like he tells it like it is, and it's like
nobody's asking Donald Trump to be warm.
No, nobody.
Right,
He's never been asked to be warm. Like
yeah.
some of the things that comes out of his mouth, Barack Obama would have been in jail. You know what I mean? So, but her, it's like, I just don't like her. I don't trust her. You trusted the rest of these motherfuckers? That's who you trusted? Like, really?
Yeah, so that's the comparison. And look, I'll go back to my now trite anecdotal discussion with a voter from South Jersey named Al that I had a 25-minute Uber ride with, right? And so he's a Democrat. He can't stand Hillary Clinton because he thinks it's part of the corruption, but he thinks Trump is even slightly worse because he's like, that rich prick. He never had any of our best intentions in mind. He's the guys who've been fucking us this whole time. Super raw guy, telling it like it is. But that doesn't mean he's right. And then one of the reasons he's against Hillary Clinton is he's like, come on, she's a broad. She's like, you ever been married? I've been married 3 times. No way I'm voting for a woman. So that's real. That's real. That also happens, right? So we don't think that way, but that doesn't mean other people don't think that way, right?
And that's what I want. I want you guys to keep talking. I want those people to shut up because I hear so much. I've in the last couple of weeks, this is the worst election ever. Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why. Nobody can tell you why. I don't like Hillary. She's just not warm. She doesn't smile. There's something about her that I don't trust. But men, you hear people describe a man, even to date, they'll say, oh, he's never been to jail. He's got a good job. I'm like, oh, he's a good citizen. You're giving him props for being a good citizen.
That's true. I have never, that's why I love these different voices, because you get to hear different perspectives. I have literally never heard anyone saying about a woman she's never been to jail.
No. You get props for being a good citizen. I have to be an angel to be on par with
someone, I remember a tweet that got thousands and thousands of retweets. It was a picture of Trump and his family on stage at the convention. They were like, imagine Hillary Clinton standing on stage with her 5 children from 3 different men.
Oh.
Like, come on. Imagine the response.
No way.
But with Trump, it's like, oh, he's spread his seed.
Yeah, he's a strong man. Wendy Davis running for governor down in Texas, she went to Harvard Law, And as she did, her husband took care of the kids for a couple of years while she went and got a great degree that she earned, right? And they ran commercials saying, "Oh, she left her kids behind." But wait, nobody ever said that about George Bush, who went to Harvard, and you know, which is hilarious, by the way. Right, let's just note that for the record.
Some great parties.
I feel bad for Harvard.
Right, and they never even ask male politicians, "Hey, what was happening with your kids while you were going to work, while you were on the campaign trail, while you were going to school?" It's never even asked. Nobody even thinks to ask.
She's a nasty woman.
Yeah. All right. So let me now. I'll go all the way back, and I know we're going to do here videos from the campaign, and we're about to run out of time.
We'll see about that.
But I just want to read a couple of your tweets because #TYT Live, and please keep sharing the stream. So I'd love to. I know it sounds funny.
Sounds filthy.
Yeah, it does. Because you know why? Because I'm a nasty man.
Move
okay.
over, share the stream.
So share it on Facebook if you're watching Facebook. Share it on the Twitter, as Rick Perry would say. And yes, believe it or not, he ran for president this time around. It's a long time ago, but he's among the 17 Republicans. And if you're on YouTube, you can embed it. You can share it on Facebook and tweet. It just is share right there, right? Or you can take the link and email it to your family and friends. Let's beat TV tonight, okay? Let's get a larger audience than television, because as you can tell from this 2 hours and 20 minutes so far, we keep it real. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, and related to that, there's a better than zero chance that if theoretically our live stream got more viewers than CNN live stream, MSNBC's live stream, Fox News live stream, there's some chance if Hillary wins, she'll hear that. And that's a message.
yeah, she chose, by the way, okay, now I'm going to keep it super real. She chose to not come on this show.
Oh.
Okay, so it's not like we didn't ask, right? And we asked over and over.
And you voted for that.
And they not only that, but that's part of it, Jimmy.
You're a cuck.
He's just saying what we're all thinking.
No, so part of it is they know we're principled, and we're going to say that what we think anyway, and we're not going to play the same corrupt game that they play.
And Johnson didn't come on either.
Yeah, and so they know that if I think you should vote for Hillary Clinton in a swing state, I'm going to say it anyway.
He's
right?
in Aleppo camp.
Yeah. And so they don't have to appease us.
Yeah.
They think, right? And so they think, well, you didn't do what we wanted. You didn't carry our water. So we're not going to come. We're going to punish you by not coming on the show.
Yes.
Okay? Not only that, if you noticed, they didn't send any surrogates.
Right.
It's not like we didn't ask for surrogates, okay? They wouldn't send anyone because we didn't carry their water.
They'll go on Fox News.
Think about that for a second. They will go on Fox News. They will give interviews to deeply
Breitbart.
conservative right-wings hosts on Fox News. But they won't come on the most progressive show online. They won't come on the show that has the most amount of millennials, and let alone undecided millennials. They will risk their own campaign and maybe their ability to become president of the United States and the most powerful person on earth, because you didn't do your job on air. On air, you were supposed to support us and not question us. You didn't carry our water, so they, and that's not about us. That's about you guys. They disrespected you. We have 80 million unique viewers a month. Are you kidding me? That is a giant audience that any sane politician would want to talk to. But they said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to punish you guys because you wouldn't do what everybody else does, which is carry our water on air. Toe the line, bow your head. And we didn't do it. Now, part of it is they also think these idiots are principled. They're going to tell their audience to vote for Hillary if they think that they should vote for Hillary. And so, we don't need to. So screw their audience. So that's what they thought about you. I'm going to keep it real. I told you, on Thursday I did a big video, and we just had a giant debate on why I voted for Hillary Clinton, okay? Because we don't play that same old game. If we did it like them, Trump talks about this, I get revenge on people.
Yeah.
And if somebody screws me over, I screw them over 1,000 times worse. And he did this thing that we didn't even get to cover because there's so many Trump scandals, but with a former Miss Universe contestant, he's down in Australia, and he pulls her up on stage and he humiliates her. But he says something interesting about himself. He says, well, I was going to tell you guys, because I thought she wasn't going to come to introduce me. She did, so it's all forgiven now. But I was going to tell you guys that she's a dummy. and I was going to lie about her. But since she showed up, okay, I'll be honest, she's actually a good person. It's amazing. He admits it, right? Right there on stage. So they know that we're not going to do that. We're not going to do the revenge, and we're not going to lie to our audience and tell them, oh, well, Hillary didn't bring any surrogates on. She didn't come on, so that's it. You should vote for somebody else. That's not the game we play. But because of that, and you know what? They think that they like, oh, ha-ha, we got you. You didn't have access to us. Okay, now here I'll get a little crass. Fuck your access. I don't need your goddamn access, okay? So
Well, by the way, because they don't know how computers work, we've gotten quite a bit of access.
So I don't need your former Governor X, and I don't need your current Congressman Y, okay? And we got that 80 million unique viewers without sucking up to the establishment or the Democratic Party or Hillary Clinton, okay? So, but that's the game that they played here, and we didn't play that game. But we still have you guys, and today already there's a giant audience online right now watching us. And I read in the papers today, right? I read online and a couple of different things covered. Oh my God, this other outlet is doing this, and CNN has a story about how Wolf Blitzer won't go on elevators. Who cares? No millennial actually cares. And some other digital company's bringing in a clown who's going to juggle, and that's so interesting. No, that's only interesting to this really boring old press. Nobody cares about goddamn jugglers. We cover the real news here, and that's why we have you guys. So I want to thank you. And by the way, our members carry us no matter what. They think, oh, we won't give ads, we won't do this, we won't do that. Okay, doesn't matter, we got our members. And you can't touch them, okay? And I had a progressive group that gets big money funding once tell me, what if we come after your donors? Okay, Bob in Nebraska, Sally in Rhode Island, giving $10 at a time, tytnetwork.com/join. Oops, there's 100 new ones. What are you going to do? Go after each of their $10? So that's what powers us. That's what makes us independent media. Thank you, guys. And so that's why we're too strong. And so go and tell everybody, man, right now, okay? Let's get it even bigger. So share on Facebook, share on Twitter, share on YouTube. We're also on the leading edge of technology. We're the only ones doing a triple stream right now on all 3 platforms. Didn't get much coverage because we didn't have a clown. But we're triple streaming right now when no one else is. And by the way, that's our members stream. We're giving you an extra stream. That's the 4th stream, actually. Ida's going to be on there a little bit later. Brian Unger, great comedian, is going to be on there later too. Extra coverage for the members to tytnetwork.com/join. So thank you guys. Now, let me read your tweets because you've been hashtag TYT Live. Matt Monk writes in, Ben Mankiewicz is making a lot of sense. People thought Brexit was 7-1 the night before, then it happened. Sahil Oberoi says, the naivete, complacency that leads to commentators like Stephen O to already dismiss Trump's chances is like Brexit all over again. On the other hand, David Kapoor writes in, election coverage, Jimmy Dore and Steve O laying down the truth, a refreshing and inspiring aggressive progressive perspective.
We should make those commenters debate.
Dylan Snyder writes in, so happy TYT is on all day on election day, saving my sanity or what little there is left. And then finally, Ryan Walker writes in, honest and passionate back and forth with differing ideas. Won't find this on the mainstream media. Thank you, guys. Keep tweeting at us at hashtag TYT Live when we're live on the show. Keep watching all of Election Day and let everybody know. Let's beat TV. Let's beat everybody else. Show them we're too strong. Okay, now, in this hour, what we were supposed to do is give you the retrospective on the election. So let's start with our favorite. Good old Jeb Bush.
Oh,
give me a break.
Give me a break. You're going to start with him?
Yeah, well, give me a break.
Come on.
Let's kick him out first. Let's watch.
Oh, let's kick him out.
Does anybody actually blame my brother for the attacks on 9/11? Iowa voters don't understand me. They're eating Monsanto-laced agriculture products. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door. Just one other thing, I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk. Thank you. Yeah, so you think he's going to shush Hillary Clinton? As I said in Spanish, mi esposa Columba nació en Mexico. I've gotten better at interrupting, Mom. Come on. I mean, come on. They don't know me. They don't know me. Did you sign this too, Luke? I eat nails when I wake up, and then I have breakfast. Supergirl is on TV. I saw it when I was working out this morning. There's an ad promoting Supergirl. She looked pretty hot.
I heard about it, but I don't know what I think about it.
I mean, he cyberbullied you. He bullied you on the stop.
I don't care about that. That's so irrelevant.
But you've got kids. I mean,
to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap. So tonight, I am suspending my campaign. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
We spent $1,200 per vote, and turns out I'm not the best fiscal.
Remember the guy on Sesame Street that with the piano? Guy
Yes.
smiling. He was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm a Floridian. I'm from Florida. Oh, God. This is embarrassing.
That was so wonderfully awkward and embarrassing. It really was.
Supergirl is fine.
It made me kind of miss Jeb Bush.
Melissa Benoist.
It kind of sucks that we don't have Jeb Bush to kick around anymore.
Yeah. We do have to remind ourselves, though, while he's fun in the videos and everything, his tax plan was at least as bad as Trump's, and he had surrounded himself with basically every neocon advisor that his brother had in his administration.
Yeah, just because.
So he would have been a disaster.
And he
too.
bragged about taking health care away from people.
There you go.
Literally.
Just because he looks and acts like an awkward nerd doesn't make him likable. So his policies were horrific. So I was very happy when they were kicking him out.
Yeah.
They were kicking him out.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Give him minimal credit for the fact that he, like his brother, at least when there was a lot of extremely Islamophobic comments made during the debates, he would often defend Muslims, say that we need to work with them. He would work with them to bomb other Muslims. So there's policy implications, but he doesn't demonize the people the same way some Republicans do. And I think that should deserve some credit.
My friend's grandfather is a commissioner in Miami, and a group of black politicians traveled up to see Jeb, and he would not see them. They were accustomed to the fact that he wouldn't even acknowledge them. And Commissioner Dawkins, and they were very open. They were like, he won't see us. And I said, why do you think that? He was like, because we're black. We mean nothing to them in Florida. And we have such a serious crime problem in southern Florida. Well, Florida's, we're infamous.
Yeah.
Twitter.
And so I was glad he lost, not just because he has bad policies, but because he was also a symbol of the establishment. As the Clintons are on the left, the Bushes are on the right. So good riddance to them. But I just hope that he's all right, though, in the end, because eating nails before breakfast probably not the right way to go. I really don't want to see the aftermath of that. So.
I wonder if his Colombian wife seasons those nails for him.
Just sitting on the toilet, give me a break.
For people who were saying he was getting cyberbullied, as you saw there, and it's like, they don't know me at all. No, it turns out they did know you. Yeah. You got cyberbullied right out of the race.
You're a wuss.
Okay. All right, so that was Jeb Bush. All right, let's have fun. Let's do a retrospective on our old friend, Dr. Ben Carson.
Oh, man.
Carson 2016. Vote and support Ben Carson for our next president and be awesome. And the rocket red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
I think the likelihood of Hitler being able to accomplish his goals would have been greatly diminished if the people had been armed. A lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay.
So did you really tell a gunman to point the gun at someone else?
I just told him, I don't think you want me. I think you want the guy behind the cash register. I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that. And it may be that you can't understand that having not lived on the streets, but that's a very easy distinction for me. Obamacare is really, I think, the worst thing that has happened in this nation since slavery. And it is, in a way, it is slavery, in a way. I had a chance to meet General Westmoreland and go to Congressional Medal of Honor dinners and was offered a full scholarship to West Point. I said, Lord, medicine is the only thing I ever wanted to do. I always thought that's what you wanted for me. And yet, it looks like I'm going to fail chemistry. I'm not going to go to medical school.
And when I went to take the test the next morning, it was like the Twilight Zone. I opened that book and I recognized the first problem as one of the ones I dreamed about. And the next, and the next, and the next, and I aced the exam. I love Harriet Tubman. I love what she did. But we can find another way to honor her. Maybe a $2 bill.
Wow.
He'll give her 1/10.
Big props to the editors at TYT because they put that down right there.
Yeah, that was J.R. Jackson doing his great work as usual. So you forget how bad they were.
That's not everything.
Yeah.
Look, first of all, we left out that the reason that he aced the exam was because an archangel came to give him the information. That the belt buckle thing, the fact that he tried to murder every relative he had at one point or another, and that he thinks that the pyramids were created to store grain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so a lot of his ideologies come from that religion.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a Quaker. And,
So we kind of broke this story that nobody paid attention to because one of our viewers actually, always too strong, you guys helping us out, sent videos where he explains his views on Seventh-day Adventism. And it turns out there's two great Satans that Seventh-day Adventists worry about. One is the Catholic Church, so he thinks the Pope is going to bring around Armageddon, and you got to watch out for the Pope.
I'm with him on that.
Okay.
the Antichrist.
Is the Antichrist. The Pope is the Antichrist. Okay. And the second entity.
Well, what a better way to hide him?
In a church.
And the second
hat could hide horns.
Entity that's going to bring out the end of the earth is the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? He was running to be the head of the U.S. government.
amazing.
And his religious ideology is the U.S. government kills us all, right? Like, so, but how could we brought out the videos, we presented that story, and everybody's like, oh, so that's what he thinks. That's when he was leading. Remember, he was the only other guy other than Donald Trump who briefly, for a little bit, led. Okay?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
like
Trump led the whole time. He led for about a week to 2 weeks, right? And we're like, this guy thinks that the U.S. is the Antichrist and the Pope is the Antichrist, and together they're going to destroy the earth. And everybody's like, yeah, ho-hum. No, we don't like to talk about people's religion. Well, if it's relevant, right? You talk about people's religion when it's Islam, and you want to ban them all, right? But when we got a lunatic running for office, you don't want to talk about it. But to me, the two things that are most important in terms of Ben Carson, because he's a massive clown, right? I mean, but is the particular way that he's a clown. His whole career was built to justify racial stereotypes. Yep. So, hey, white people, you were right. I was a savage beast. That's why I tried to stab my friend and hit the belt buckle. Really? You happened to hit his belt buckle and then the knife broke? What a bullshit story. Who in their right mind could believe that? But he put that in his books. And the white right-wingers ate that up. Oh, they're like, oh, yeah, the savage. And then he tried to hit his mom with a hammer. None of these stories are remembered by anyone else in his family. And what a weird thing to brag about. To say, I tried to murder my mom with a hammer, I tried to murder my friend, etc., and to make up these outlandish stories. Why would you ever do that when you're a respected neurosurgeon? Because what you do to sell books and to get speeches that pay you a lot of money is you appeal to racial stereotypes that white right-wingers have. And then you know what cured him? Jesus.
Self-hate.
Right.
Tamed the beast.
He went on a book tour, and Trump went on a book burning tour. A little bit different.
And the final part of that was the archangel stuff, right? So, hey, I was a savage and I was violent like all black people. You're right, white folks, right? But Jesus Christ cured me in this famous thing he recounts. He's in the bathroom for 45 minutes. Jesus comes to him in the bathroom, a curious place. Anyway, for somebody, and then he goes, oh, okay, I realize. No, I should be peaceful and I should go become a neurosurgeon instead. But you can't have a smart black man. So in that chemistry test, he did ace. That's true. But it wasn't because he was smart. It's because an archangel came to him in his dream. He didn't earn it. A black guy can't earn it, right? Jesus had to show mercy on the poor black guy and teach him in his dream. Yeah. Otherwise, he was going to fail it. So that's what disgusts me about Ben Carson. That he makes money and he got everything, you were a neurosurgeon, you didn't need the rest of it. But you did it to make an extra buck and go, oh, yes, sir, you're right, sir. I was savage and I was stupid. And the only thing that saved me was the Lord Jesus Christ. By the way, later I'd like to, America is going to destroy us and so is the Pope. But anyway, that part let's not talk about. So again, like Jeb Bush, seems like, oh, what a goofball. It's kind of, you almost kind of like him. He's so stupid, right? But his actual path is one that is really hideous.
He's the doctor that reminds America that we have a mental health crisis.
That's ironic.
That's a good one.
What was his campaign slogan? You snooze, you lose?
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it became literal. All right, so now let's move on to somebody else. Okay.
I just have to say one thing, though. When his wife sang the national anthem, a lot of people were really upset because they said they were fat-shaming her, and they were fat-shaming her, and what was something? Oh, looks-shaming her. I was voice-shaming her. So just so that you guys could be clear on where I was coming from, that bitch can't sing. Yeah. It seemed like a scene from an Eddie Murphy movie. I was like, oh my God, stop. But that's that 7-Day Adventist scene.
It did seem like a scene from an Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, before we actually move on to Ted Cruz, I just want to explain to everybody. Look, there are 2 streams going on right now. So everybody's getting the live stream. God bless. It's free, and it's election day. We're doing 12 hours of it. But for members, you get a second stream as well.
Oh.
Okay, so it's at the bar, and you're getting extra content. So tytnetwork.com/join. It's really important. That's what makes this show possible. tytnetwork.com/join and get extra content as a member. Okay, now let's go on to Ted Cruz. So Ted Cruz came in second and was a very relevant player in this election cycle on the Republican side, obviously. So let's do a little retrospective on Ted Cruz's campaign.
Chris, I would note that the last 4 questions have been Rand, please attack Ted. Marco, please attack Ted. Chris, please attack Ted. Jeb, please attack Ted. Let me just say this.
It is a debate, sir.
We rolled out a spending plan, $500 billion in specific cuts, 5 major agencies that I would eliminate: the IRS, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and HUD. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult 2 people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen?
I've looked at the candidates. Ted Cruz is my man. He fits the bill. He's got me. He loves us. He's the man for the job, and he will go duck hunting, because today we're going. Ted Cruz is my man.
Are you taking off? Come on.
Yeah, they're going with me.
Hey, let's hop out of the way.
We're taking it.
Good job. Good job. That means the next time a jihadist walks into a recruiting center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he's going to encounter the business end of firearms wielded by a dozen Marines.
Ready?
Good job. Good job. Under no circumstances will Iran be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. And if the Ayatollah doesn't understand that, we may have to help introduce him to his 72 virgins. All right, let's see if we've got some bacon. All right. Machine gun bacon. I wished I had spent time in the service. It's something I respect immensely, but it just ended up as I went from high school to college to law school and on to a career. It just seemed there was always something else. This is nuts. And while I'm at it, I guess I should go ahead and admit, yes, my dad killed JFK. He is secretly Elvis, and Jimmy Hoffa is buried in his backyard. I don't get angry often. But you mess with my wife, you mess with my kids, that'll do it every time. Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
So will you support him as the nominee?
I'm going to beat him. I have come to the conclusion that if I am nominated to be President of the United States, that I will run on a ticket with my vice presidential nominee, Carly Fiorina.
I know 2 girls that I just adore. I'm so happy I can see them more.
From the beginning, I've said that I would continue on as long as there was a viable path to victory. tonight, I'm sorry to say, it appears that path has been foreclosed. We are suspending our campaign.
Prime campaign.
So, and then of course the last image of Ted Cruz phone banking.
Oh,
that hurts.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Carly Fiorina was his running mate for 2.5 days. I think.
She was the shortest VP candidate ever.
She dropped out of the race multiple times.
But didn't she fall too? She's the one that fell.
did fall,
She kind of literally dropped.
The amazing thing is what you saw in that final video is that even someone as obviously odious as Ted Cruz, who is so bad at projecting this macho image that he was like, you're never going to be macho. Stop trying to do that. Who's awkward, can't have an authentic family moment to save his life, and has horrible policies. There are people who, when he was dropping out, were like, no, like seriously loved this guy.
Well, there's the religious crowd. I met some of those people at a Ted Cruz rally. They're mostly older and overly religious. That's who was really into. He really went into the overly religious people.
Yeah, as we go through all the different Republican candidates of Christmas past, of primaries past, it's one after another that's worse than the one before, right? Just when you look at Jeb Bush and you go pathetic, and you look at Ben Carson and you go shameful / shameless, right? Then you go to Ted Cruz and you're like, oh my God, he's even worse.
Yeah.
Like, his policies were, more friendly to the rich and the powerful and the multinational corporations than any of them, right?
Yeah.
Including even Donald Trump. And so
his signature foreign policy policy that he wanted to pursue was carpet bombing Middle Eastern cities.
Yep. Remember, let's make their sand glow turn into glass, and we're like, hey, wait, where are you going to carpet bomb? Like, doesn't that mean you're going to kill citizens? No. I'm just going to carpet bomb the terrorists.
It's strategic carpet bombing.
Strategic carpet.
Yes.
There is no strategic carpet bombing. That's why it's carpet bombing. You bomb everything, right?
It's not throw rug bombing.
So are we going to pretend, though? Are we going to pretend that Ted Cruz isn't creepy?
I know. That's what I was getting to.
When he did the kiss.
My first death threats came from the Ted Cruz people, because I said that they were like, he's doing somebody's work. I was like, yeah, the KKK. Like, I was they look at him and he's like a hero. Yeah. But they did studies about how he has the physical makeup, and he has the personality traits and the nonverbal behavior of a serial killer. Like there were like there were several studies, like psychologists, psychotherapists. They were like, he has the makeup. Very similar to Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy. Yes.
And it's just really...
Well, he looks like a cross between Joe McCarthy and Charlie McCarthy.
Yes.
Right? He really does.
Yes.
So now that's part of where that myth that he was a Zodiac killer came out of. What I was greatly amused by is that some people actually believed it. They're like,
the Zodiac killer?
Yeah, the Zodiac killer's running for president. It's not a big deal. No, that would be a big deal. That would it probably wouldn't work. So, I saw the studies that studied his face.
Yeah.
They're like, you got to fix your
poor
face.
Bastards.
Fix your face.
And so now that I actually feel bad about.
They didn't say he needed Botox. He needed Clorox.
Okay.
You want to wipe that clean.
Okay. No, but in all seriousness, there's nothing you can do about his face, so I feel bad about that for him, right? Like he happens to have a very unfortunate face for a politician if you want people to trust you.
There's nothing he can do about his face.
Slight improvement if he were to walk around literally wearing a Ted Cruz mask.
Okay. But, so the part that's real to me is, I couldn't believe, like Ida was saying in the beginning, I couldn't believe that people took him, like they thought, and John mentioned it too, that they trusted him. Because he has that fake, smarmy politician demeanor. That's okay, not about anything about his facial features, but like he'd look into the camera like this, like
disingenuous.
Yeah, and let me tell you something about the American people. And you're like, dude, I've seen that from 1,000 politicians. Yeah. You guys the Ted Cruz supporters were supposed to be the most hardcore. We don't like the mainstream. We don't like the establishment, and we want a populist. We want somebody who's real. And you pick that smarmy ass as your real politician.
It's a bit of the Martin O'Malley. Like Martin O'Malley was charming, whereas Ted Cruz is creepy, but they both have that. You've studied tapes of what politicians in the 90s were like, and you're just trying to do that. We're like, I'm really thinking about you.
Yes.
He didn't even like that machine gun bacon. Did you see his face? Machine gun bacon. Do you remember that face? It wasn't even good.
It's no faux gras, but anyway, it's okay. And he says, oh, these Ivy League towers. He said he went to Princeton, he went to Harvard. He is the establishment.
His wife.
He took $13 million from a Wall Street executive named Mercer. And then why do you think he did that pathetic phone banking for Trump and endorsing him at the end? Because his donors told him to bow his head, and he did, because he's a scummy politician.
And he couldn't schedule any military time because things happened.
Other things
things happen. I mean,
I had touch football on the weekends.
I had ultimate frisbee.
I play bridge.
I mean, where am I going to squeeze in service?
I had to go make money. I had a career. I had shit to do. The military's for people who don't have shit to do.
That's right.
I mean, I really respect them, but let's just keep it real. I mean,
they're
they
not
weren't going to Ivy League schools. You know what I'm saying, right? Okay, that's what we thought, Ted. That's what we thought. Okay. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to skip to the Democrats. I might come back to other Republicans in a second, okay?
They're so fun.
Yeah. Now, we're going to look at other Democratic candidates in this retrospective. So this ought to be fun and brief.
Chafee, here he comes.
It's video 6, guys. Sorry.
Lincoln.
Is this Q&A time? Am I allowed to stand?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm not capable of doing Q&A in Iowa
please.
from a seat.
Wherever you want to be.
Okay.
All right. I'll take your call. It's fine.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thanks. In 1999, you voted for the very bill that made banks bigger.
The Glass-Steagall was my very first vote. I just arrived. My dad had died in office. I was appointed to the office. It was my very first vote.
Are you saying you didn't know what you were voting for? You've all made a few people upset over your political careers. Which enemy are you most proud of?
I'd have to say the enemy soldier that threw the grenade that wounded me, but he's not around right now to talk to.
All right.
We are a great people. We are a generous, and we are a compassionate people. And we are far better than the sort of fascist rhetoric that you hear spewed out by Donald Trump. The enduring symbol of our country is not the barbed wire fence. It is the Statue of Liberty.
I thought when O'Malley made the statement that Black Lives Matter, he said white lives matter, all lives matter, and then he apologized like a little baby, like a disgusting little weak, pathetic baby.
What does that say about you that you're casting a vote for something you weren't really sure about?
I think you're being a little rough. I just arrived at the United States Senate. I've been mayor of my city. My dad had died. I'd been appointed by the governor.
Awesome. That is so awesome.
It's like he had a list of excuses, but he didn't know you're not supposed to say all of them right back to back.
You know, I had a toothache that morning, and I couldn't think straight.
Sun was in my eyes. The dog had eaten my legislation, so I didn't know what to vote for.
It was snowy out, and I didn't have my right tires, and I was fishtailing all the way, what made me upset.
So, look, Chafee's excuse for that vote was hilarious. That might be the best of the rest, but then
that guy's the Lincoln Chafee was the brown shoe at a black tie affair.
But Webb intimating about how he killed that other guy was awesome.
Oh,
yeah. Who was my worst opponent? The guy who took my neck. But I took his life. But Martin O'Malley with the, here's my jacket, let me roll up the sleeves. I learned this in Politician 101.
And by the way, in a lot of other primaries, like if 96 had an open Democratic primary, that would have done well. Like that's exactly what Bill Clinton, he's trying to be Bill Clinton when he does that.
Yeah. Well, that was not this time, and those guys did not last long, and did not.
I do think if Bernie hadn't been in the race, I think that Martin O'Malley would have gotten some percentage of that because he is more progressive. He made missteps on certain policies and everything, but he is more of a progressive politician. He just also doesn't have the authenticity of Bernie.
Well, I'm just going to get ready in case anybody asks me any questions. Now, I'm not going to answer them fully. I'm just going to roll up one sleeve. So So if anybody has a question, I'm just going to take questions from this side. Over here, I still have the coat on. I'll take questions from over here because I'm ready. This is how you can tell we're ready. I have the sleeve rolled up, getting ready to do the hard work of answering questions with my sleeve rolled up.
You know who would have done that? Gary Johnson.
Rolling around the floor.
All right, we're almost out of time in this hour, so I want to get one other thing here. So now we're going to go with GOP field retrospective. So not the big three, Kasich, Cruz, I'm sorry, and Carson and Jeb Bush, but the whole Republican primaries. Let's have some fun.
It's going to be the fruit.
Now I'm running for president to fight and win for the American people.
Today, I believe that I'm being called to lead by helping to clear the field in this race so that a positive conservative message can rise to the top of the field. With this in mind, I will suspend my campaign immediately.
If you elect somebody to D.C. that wants to be popular with the mainstream media, we are done as a country. But, Megan, it's also true that there are radical Muslims. There are Muslims that want to treat women as second-class citizens. There are those that want to use our freedoms to undermine the freedoms of others. It makes no sense to let those types of folks come into our country. It's just common sense. I'm not just asking you to join a campaign. I'm asking you to join a cause.
Everything I know about the Iranians, I learned in the pool room. I ran the pool room when I was a kid, and I met a lot of liars, and I know the Iranians are lying.
Wouldn't want, quote, such a hothead with his finger on the nuclear codes. You as well have raised...
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
I would make very clear I would not talk to Vladimir Putin. In fact, I would talk to Vladimir Putin a lot. And I would say to him, listen, Mr. President, there's a no-fly zone in Syria. You fly in, it applies to you. And yes, we would shoot down the planes of Russian pilots if, in fact, they were stupid enough to think that this president was the...
Well, I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate. I mean, I think when we think about the judgment of someone who might want World War III, we might think about someone who might shut down a bridge because they don't like their friends. They don't want to, they want to get a Democrat.
The drive-by shot at the beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then the memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him.
Here's the bottom line. This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
The memorized 25-second speech.
I'm not going to be vice president. I'm not running for governor of Florida.
Get in the plane and go home. It's over there. You go home.
The military is not a social experiment. The purpose of the military is kill people and break things.
Don, I know that most politicians say we want everyone to vote. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't. I don't want everyone to vote. if they're so
Unless
stupid.
They're voting the right way.
Well, that's right. If they're going to vote for me, then they need to vote. If they're not going to vote for me, they need to stay home. I mean, it's that simple.
I'm also concerned about a guy that believes he's a Christian and pretends to be, and then and says he is, but then does things that makes it very difficult for people to practice their Christian faith.
One of the reasons I've said that I would not be talking to Vladimir Putin right now, although I have met him as well, not in a green room for a show, but in a private meeting.
What happened in Colorado is a terrible thing. This guy is a deranged murderer, and I hope he is put away for life. It may be that we should be classifying that as domestic terrorism as well, but that has nothing to do with the truth of what is going on in Planned Parenthood.
Do you believe the Clintons have a real marriage?
They've been married for a very long time. They've been married for a very long time.
So it's a real marriage.
They've been married for a very long time.
It's a real marriage thing. You'll say that.
They've been married for a long time. And unlike another woman in this race, I actually love spending time with my husband. Well, I guess I would say, you know, if my husband had done some of the things that Bill Clinton had done, I would have left him long ago.
Seems like a contradiction there at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we left out there that when she said not in a green room, she had previously bragged about being in a green room with Vladimir Putin, by the way. Yeah, that was the circle.
That was Prozac, though. That's not Zoloft. That's Prozac. My bad. The right eye twitching like that, those are pills.
Every once in a while, there's a theory about pills. Since I don't take any of them, I don't even know. But like, there was a theory that Marco Rubio with the water
on Adderall.
Yeah. Right? He's constantly like, I gotta get some water in me. Jeez, I'm more mercy.
Trump had cocaine.
I grew up in the house with a pill popper, so I know a pill popper when I see a pill popper raised me. So I always know a pill popper. You can see it in the face. That was, that they've been married a long time. They've been married a long time. It's just they repeat themselves.
You know, if you look at that, I never noticed before, but in that, if you look at the Chris Christie in that montage, he looks like Marco Rubio if he was stung by bees.
Yeah. I like to grab him by the pussy picture with him, with Christy, because he has his baseball uniform on. The meme. I love to grab him by the, because he looks like he's got a fat one.
Now, my two favorite moments were right in the beginning when Scott Walker's like, "No, I'm going to do a great service here by clearing the field."
Clearing the field.
They're like, "Oh,
I'm going to lead."
By
clearing the
field.
field.
I'm going to lead by quitting. Okay, so the great ironies there. One, I'm helping the country by leaving. I'm leading from behind by quitting. Okay, these are the things that propose. But the thing that's super important and substantive is his donors told him, "Hey, take a walk. Okay, we got to beat Trump." And so even though Scott Walker actually in the beginning was given great odds to win, he was one of the guys that they thought had a real shot at winning, and he was the first to quit. And the reason for that is because he is the most loyal to his donors. So the donors are like, time to clear the field. Because why else would you say clear the field in your press conference as you're leaving? Because that is literally what your donors told you. We have to clear the field. But he's too stupid to realize you're not supposed to say that during the press conference, right?
Yeah.
And then the best part, that's the most important and substantive part. The best part was when Trump humiliates Chris Christie. Get on the plane. Go home. Go home. Like, your work is
right
done
there.
here.
It's right there, buddy.
It's right there. You
Put that donut down and go.
Yeah. And he made that joke, though, because he was talking about how Oreo cookies left for Mexico, and he's going to bring them back. And until then, he's not going to have any Oreo cookies. And he turns around to Chris Christie, who's sitting there like a schmuck, right? And he goes, "Now you can't have them either, Chris." Remember, you know, some people get on us when Jimmy makes the fat jokes about Chris Christie. Trump makes them. Trump makes them, right? So
I didn't call him fat. I said he has a fat pussy. So
just to be clear,
don't attack me on Twitter.
All right, we gotta go. More Ida Rodriguez for the members at tytnetwork.com/join. More Jimmy later as well for the members.
Hey, can I tell people I'm doing a live show November 19th at the Improv here in Los Angeles? Go to jimmydorecomedy.com. I'll see you November 19th.
Nice. Okay, and of course, tytnetwork.com/join to become a member so you can watch everybody here. When we come back, we're going to have Sam Cedar, Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, Naomi Cones, who was a huge Bernie Sanders supporter, a huge progressive, all of them calling in from New York, Philadelphia, all the different places that we've got guys in our election coverage today. So stay right here.
Scott Baio, leave me alone.
Not so fast.
Food smelled like vomit.
Now, you guys are going to think, especially my early behind-the-scenes footage, like I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. Because, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you I'm not. Well, I'll just tell you if I am, right? And so I get goofy in the behind-the-scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Bitsy? Why'd they make me do it?
Hey, I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up.
Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. All right, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
The barbers I've been going to, which are all about $20, once you put tip in, none of them do a scalp massage. And I went to the barber and it wasn't open, and I'm like, oh, there's a Supercuts. And I was like, maybe they'll do a scalp massage because that's the thing I enjoy, right?
My confusion came because you mentioned the scalp massage, and the first thing I thought was my barber in Inglewood does not do scalp massages. We talk shit, we watch music videos. That's what happens in black barbershops. Who the fuck goes to get a scalp massage?
White people.
What the hell is that?
Two white people on either side of you.
What is, as soon as you mention
and
scalp,
brown people.
as soon as you mention scalp massage, I had to immediately look at Ben and be like, are we about to laugh, right? What is this? Like, what is this new thing?
And it wasn't open.
There's no way you had just the white experience because, like you said, you were not born here.
I grew up with, and I say this all the time, I grew up with almost no discrimination.
Right.
I was super lucky. My name is indecipherable. Right. My skin tone is fairly indecipherable.
Right.
I meld in wherever I go. The Italians in Jersey gave me the nod. Right. In Miami, the Cubans gave me the nod.
Right.
Here, the Persians give me the nod.
Right.
Right. So I was, in a sense, here now, we'll connect it back again to the Civil Rights Movement. I was the invisible man.
Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
Welcome back to the Young Turks Election Day coverage. For those of you who are members, oh, by the way, I should probably introduce Brett Ehrlich. He is one of the hosts for Pop Trigger and also a common fill-in for me when I'm not here.
Yep, anyone's gone, they call me about 4 minutes before, and I run here.
Exactly.
Or sometimes I use a Razor scooter, one of those old-timey Razor scooters.
Do you still have one of those?
No, I stopped using Razor scooters the one day when I had my friends, and I was walking up a ramp into a class, and this woman was walking down, and the Razor scooter, you hold the handle, and the bottom is very thick metal, and it just swung out and hit her right in the shin, and it was the worst I've ever felt in my life because she was clearly in pain.
Well, one time I was testing a bowling ball, and as I kind of scooped it back, there was a child behind me, and it hit him in the face.
Wow.
So I think I beat you in terms of feeling bad about doing something accidentally.
Why do we tell you these stories? Because it's a metaphor for the election.
Absolutely. Catastrophe.
Hitting a child in the face with
a
bowling ball.
So in this hour, we are going to have some interviews. We hopefully will speak to Sam Cedar, who, of course, is the host of The Majority Report, Kyle Kulinski, who's with TYT Network and hosts Secular Talk, and Nomi Konst, who is a political analyst and the founder and executive director of the Accountability Project. So lots of really great guests. And then sprinkled in between these interviews, we are going to talk about some ballot initiatives throughout the country that are extremely notable. I know a lot of people like to focus on the presidential election, and I wouldn't say they think it's the end-all, be-all, but they think it's the most important part of this election. But we're electing members of Congress. We are voting on ballot initiatives that are really going to have an impact on how our states are governed. So we are going to talk about all that in just a little bit. But before we get to all of that, I see you're wearing your I voted sticker.
Yes.
Okay. And so I want to know if your experience voting today was anything similar to what I experienced.
Well, my experience, I've had the pleasure of, and part of me feels terrible for saying this, I live in super white zones, like sparsely populated super white areas my whole life. And I go to vote. I'm one of the few within those areas that doesn't really have a normal job. So I went in, cruised in at about 10:30, and I did not have to wait at all. It was at a gorgeous fire department at the bottom of a beautiful hill. Parking was easy. Got out, walked up. There was a pink table with my name in it. The woman, already though, there were signs that she had had quite the day. She was like, "What's your name? What's your name?" And then she had to find it. She got like the location wrong in the area for me to sign my name. But I finally got it.
Yeah.
Already the ballot box had been jammed, so she had to hand feed it into like the area below.
Oh, wow.
So they had some trouble. I had none. How about you?
So I showed up to the voting station 30 minutes before it opened, and already there was a gigantic line. And I was a little late to work as a result of all that. And look, a lot of people early vote, and that was an option for me, but I like the experience of going on election day and voting and kind of seeing what the crowd is like. And so, yeah, I waited in line for about an hour, finally got an opportunity to vote. There was an elderly woman actually in charge of like the signing and all that, finding your name and having you sign the signature. And so I told her my last name. I'm like Kasparian with a K. And she was like, okay. So then she's like in the P section, and then she keeps going further, and all of a sudden she's at the T's. And I'm like, are those names in alphabetical order? And she was like,
what a polite person you
I just
are.
didn't want to be, I didn't want to be rude to her, obviously. She was, very sweet lady. And she's like,
volunteering her time
yes,
on the day that symbolizes democracy.
Yeah. And then finally, I was like, I think you might have to go the other direction. Like, let's. And so she did very slowly, finally got to my name, finally had the opportunity to sign my name and then go vote. But it was a good feeling to see all those people, motivated enough to show up super early and cast their ballot, and vote on propositions in California, which I think are incredibly important, which include the death penalty, whether or not we're going to repeal it, whether or not we're going to legalize marijuana for recreational use. Numbers are looking pretty good for that. So
yeah, it's what I love most, and when we came back from break, I was just gripped by the sample ballot reading. Oh, it's one of the finest novellas I've ever read, opinions and whatnot. But what I love about the state ballot and my sample ballot is that we are voting on the death penalty. We are voting on legalizing marijuana, and we're also voting on should we sell shopping bags at the mall? Should we sell them anymore? I don't know. It's so sprawling, the breadth of our democracy and what we're chiming in on today. Should the local high school get a new gymnasium? Is on the same ballot as repealing the death penalty.
So let's talk about, California ballot initiatives just a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about notable ones throughout the country, because there are a number of deceptively written ballot initiatives throughout the country that I think people need to be very aware about. Now, in California, there is one proposition that says, hey, we want to spend $9 billion. We want to take out $9 billion in bonds to fund construction in public schools. So you guys know how much I love public education. You guys know how important I think public education is, and it has been severely defunded in various parts of the country. And so you look at that and you're like, wait a minute, there's some things, you investigate and you see that there are some interesting things happening. First of all, Republicans in the state of California support the measure. Republicans never support funding public education. So then the governor, Jerry Brown, who is a liberal, does not support the measure. And I'm like, what is going on? So I keep researching it, and then I find out that This was a measure that was pushed by construction companies that want to make money through state funding. The measure does not specify how the money will be allocated. So there are some concerns about it not being allocated equally to poor neighborhoods and poor schools. The schools that have consultants that essentially lobby for that money are likely to get that money. Poor schools don't have such consultants. Let's keep it real. And then also, it specifically allocates $500 million for charter schools, which is also another red flag because it shows where they plan on allocating the money to. Also, it's $9 billion, but by the time the state of California pays it off, assuming that they can pay it off, it'll go up to $17 billion with interest included. So the reason why I'm giving you guys that very specific example is because on its face, it looks like a great idea, and of course I'm in favor of funding public education in any way we can, but you have to make sure that the way the funding works makes sense. If Republicans are in favor of funding something involving public education, it should be a little bit of a red flag, just considering the fact that, historically they've been very much against public education.
Right. We have Sam, it sounds
Yes.
like. So, but funding, I voted no on that. I looked at it, and it says how much it's $500 million per year for 35 years. It doesn't really say where it comes from. And a lot of those construction-based initiatives are ones where it's like, oh, the people who have connections within the government are the ones who are going to get paid.
Exactly.
And one of the most important themes following these state measures and whatnot is whether the benefits absolutely make their way down to the actual people.
Exactly.
And we're going to talk about that with right-to-work states in a bit, but
Yes.
that's like the key element for me.
Absolutely. All right, we have Sam Seder on the line. He's the host of the progressive radio talk show, The Majority Report. Sam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Anna.
How are you doing?
We're getting ready to go live in about an hour or so. So I'm going through my sort of classic pre-production meltdown.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. We were going through that right before going live today, and Cenk was a mess. And so he's like, "Oh, I'm so stressed out," but it all works out. It's all fine.
Sam, what are you
I
melting?
know. I think I'm one or two cables shy of doing the whole thing, but we'll see.
I hear you. I hear you. All right. So tell me about your feelings of today. Did you do early voting? Did you go to the polls today? What did you experience?
I do absentee voting. I'm actually registered upstate in Zephyr Teachout's district, and so I voted about a week ago.
Oh,
but
wow.
It's still pretty exciting.
So how were things different a week ago in the nation? Do you think your vote would have been affected in any way a week ago versus now? Because I haven't really talked to an early voter. You cast your ballot, and then you definitely saw a week of news about FBI and emails. How did you feel having already sent your ballot off?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I didn't. The FBI thing was a joke. The moment that James Comey announced it, I mean, I thought it was incredibly inappropriate, and even if the worst nightmare of Darrell Issa was true, it wouldn't have impacted my vote, because I think, largely speaking, that whole email server thing is a joke. I mean, I have a lot of problems with Hillary Clinton from a policy perspective, but as a progressive, as someone from the left, I know that Hillary Clinton is going to be a much better person to have in the White House if I want to grow the left, A, and B, pursue issues policies that are important to me.
So, Sam, an interesting thing has happened in the Democratic Party during this election, and it specifically has to do with individuals who also identify as progressives, who feel uncomfortable voting for Hillary Clinton because of, let's say, yes, the email scandal, or more importantly, they think that due to the information that they have through WikiLeaks, they feel like it is immoral as a progressive to vote for someone like Hillary Clinton. Now, that's kind of divided the Democratic Party a little bit, and it's led to a lot of heartache for people like me and a lot of, I wouldn't say confusion, but a lot of difficult decisions for someone like me, because I see their point of view and I see their perspective. But what was your take on all of it?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure, frankly, that it's, divided the Democratic Party. I mean, look, I don't, to the extent that I am registered as a Democrat, I do that because I want to say in primaries that I think are going to be relevant to who I vote for in New York State. But I don't think that there's really a tremendous amount of data to say that it's divided the Democrats. I mean, but yes, there are people who are upset about it. A lot of people in my audience are also upset about it. I don't view voting as a mode of self-expression. Voting for me, my vote is a tool. And so, like any tool I use it in the way that's going to give me the most desirable outcome based upon the context in which I use it. And there is, I suppose the argument, and one of the reasons why I actually, during the TYT town hall for Jill Stein, I asked Jill Stein if what the plans are to build the Green Party, because that would have been something that I would have used as a calculation in my vote. And so, I vote strategically. And so I don't, it's not a question of me about morals. My own morality is not a function of who I vote for, except for in the context of what issues I want to promote. So it's not, for me, voting is not, like painting a picture or protesting or holding a sign or anything like that. It is a small means to promote a desired outcome.
Assuming that there would be more of a chance for a third-party candidate to win the election, would you be open to voting for a third-party candidate like Jill Stein?
I mean, if there was a chance of a third-party candidate to win, and I agreed with their issues more, of course. I mean, I honestly, for me, the Democratic Party is simply, I don't have any allegiance to the Democratic Party. I don't have any sentimentality towards it. It is, at least on a presidential level, in my mind, the best, the best mechanism generally to promote my views, at least at this time. I mean, in fact, in New York, I don't vote on the Democratic Party ticket. I vote on the Working Families Party ticket. And we have fusion voting in New York, and that's not something that's available to everybody. But so, I mean, in that regard.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit for our audience and also for me, because I'm an idiot, what fusion voting means?
I mean, it's not. It's not surprising you wouldn't be aware of it because it's only in a few states in the country. So basically, the candidates can run on multiple party lines. So when you look at the ballot in New York State, Hillary Clinton is on the Democratic Party line. She's on the Working Families Party line. And whereas Donald Trump was on the Republican Party line, he was also, I think, on the Conservative Party line, and maybe one or two others. And more often than not, the Working Families Party will end up, the Democrat will be running on their ticket. Sometimes they run their own candidate in more local elections, and they're now in like 4 or 5 states. And I don't know if they all have fusion voting, but they're growing. They're growing in infrastructure, and they don't attempt to run anybody on a national level. They pick and choose where they perceive strength to lie, locally. And they were the ones who threatened to run Zephyr Teachout against Andrew Cuomo. Now, ultimately, they didn't, but it did give Zephyr Teachout a platform where she primaried Andrew Cuomo and got about 35% of the vote, which really, in many respects, I think maybe Andrew Cuomo doesn't realize this, but ended his national aspirations. And so I was, for someone like me, I was pretty happy with that because I'm not a big fan of Andrew Cuomo's. And so fusion voting basically means that you can that a candidate can run on multiple parties, and so you can strengthen a party while not being a spoiler.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, system in some states. We definitely don't have that in California.
Yeah, so for you, Sam, looking back, we're almost done with this election. We only have a few hours left. What's the highlight for you, or the low light, or was it the same moment?
The highlight or the low light? I don't have any one particular moment. I mean, my biggest, sort of frustration with this election was that the Clinton campaign did not, specifically, their strategy was to not associate Donald Trump with the rest of the Republican Party. And I think that might, from my perspective, that is a huge lost opportunity. I mean, even those WikiLeaks, you could see the DNC was mad about this, that the Clinton campaign was not tying Donald Trump around Paul Ryan's neck. And I think that's a huge mistake. It also, I think, gives us a sense of like what the first battle for progressives is going to be. I mean, I think Clinton is going to attempt, with the help of Chuck Schumer, to pass some type of corporate tax repatriation bill, and I think they're sparing Paul Ryan and Republicans, more broadly speaking, is indicative of that. Is indicative of those plans.
I think you make a really good point about that. I think that Hillary Clinton is what a lot of progressives fear she is. I think that she is definitely, a more centrist Democrat. I think that she is a little more buddy-buddy with the Republican Party that a lot of people would like to believe.
I mean, it's a old school, classic, strategic move in the kind of system that we have in America, which is there's a two-party system. If you have someone like Trump who typically you'd expect someone, if he's not even technically that far to the right, but he's just so far on the fringe with his ideology that what you would do is everyone to the left of you would think was on your side, so you just move right to capture more of the popular vote. That's what happened. And more to your point, we were just in Nevada.
I don't think Hillary Clinton moved right. I mean, to be honest with you, I think, Bernie Sanders pushed her policy positions further to the left than she wanted. Now, she didn't particularly run an issue-oriented campaign because it was basically the whole campaign was focused on Donald Trump as a monster.
Yeah.
And so I think Hillary Clinton in November of 2016 is to the left of Hillary Clinton 2015 November, and certainly to the left of Hillary Clinton November 2014. I mean, I think that is, at least in terms of stated policy positions. Now, whether or not she's actually going to execute those, I mean, frankly, there's not going to be an opportunity for a lot of those. But in terms of policy positions and in terms of what she run on, she's to the left of where she was a year ago. That's not.
I guess the better way to say it then.
It doesn't satisfy me, but that's the reality. But she did not do enough to force the Republicans to own Donald Trump, and that is really more about rhetoric.
Well, we were just in Nevada, and they're running an ad nonstop on the air in Nevada, which is Republican by Republican. They're going through Paul Ryan, the Republican governor there, and playing statements where they're disavowing Donald Trump, even though they haven't explicitly done that. But every moment when Paul Ryan said, that's the definition of a racist statement, and moments where the governor is like, I can't explicitly embrace Donald Trump. But that's what it is. And I guess it's better to say that the same way I said that Trump isn't necessarily further to the right, there's just people he's alienated. And it seems that rather than tying the Republican Party to Donald Trump, they're going after Republicans who have fallen away from Donald Trump.
Yeah, and it is an interesting strategy. Look, I think my biggest issue with this election overall has been the fact that it wasn't a policy-based election. I know that during the primaries, Bernie Sanders focused very heavily on policy. And then as soon as we had the two nominees, now we're just talking about people's character, personality, and yeah, that's important as well. You don't want someone as hideous as Donald Trump being the next president of the United States. But at the same time, I think that holding Hillary's feet to the fire is so important. So you're right, in terms of rhetoric and I guess official stated policies, she's moved to the left. But you want to hear more from her. You want to hold her feet to the fire. You want journalists and reporters to sit down with her and ask her the tough questions. Now, I know that she hasn't granted many journalists or reporters any interviews, and she certainly doesn't like press conferences either, but at least get into the nitty-gritty of what both candidates are proposing. I mean, Donald Trump, there's been very little analysis of some of the crazy policy ideas that he has. You watch television news, and it's all like, you know, here's the crazy thing that he said today. Now let's have a 5-hour-long conversation about it. Yeah, he says crazy things every day, but what's even crazier is what he proposes to do if he gets elected.
Yeah, it's what.
Yeah, I think like that's the media's fault. I mean, you look how much time was spent on that email stuff, which has no, at this point, I mean, the email server it is not operative. It is, and you look at the amount of time that was spent on that as opposed to issues. Yeah, I think it's a massive failure of the media. What's interesting is that we saw the flip of 2008. Right? In 2008, the difference between the three leading candidates, between Clinton, Obama, and John Edwards, on policy was literally got down to the idea of whether or not there should be a mandate in the Affordable Care Act. I mean, that was virtually the only difference across every different issue set that you would have. I mean, I think Barack Obama on foreign policy was a little bit more dovish than Hillary Clinton in 2008, and I think that's probably the case now. But and maybe dovish is too strong of a word. But
definitely too strong of a word.
A little bit more on the dove scale, let's say, relative to Clinton. But this time around, we had all the arguments within the primary because of Bernie Sanders, because he relentlessly raised these things. And then in the general, where had it been, let's say, Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush or any of the others or Ted Cruz, you would have heard more about issues like choice, and you would have heard more about taxation, and you would have heard, and so in some ways that prevented or made it less relevant for Clinton to tack to the center in terms of her policies. And so we still have the policies she exited more or less. I mean, I think there's a couple of places where I've seen some hedges, but more or less from where she was in the primary. And that's a good starting point for the left, because I don't think it's going to be like 2008. You're not going to get you're not going to have the left asleep for 2 or 3 years. I think it's going to be on day one. The left is going to be organized
hope so.
To push Clinton in certain directions.
I certainly hope so. And, Bernie Sanders has already famously said that he plans on holding her feet to the fire. And I love that. I think it's really important for progressives who feel like they haven't really had much of a choice during the general election to keep fighting. Just because the person that you didn't want got nominated and is likely to get elected doesn't mean that you give up the good fight. Sam Seder, host of The Majority Report, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
What if Bernie Sanders holds her feet to the fire, and much like Daenerys Targaryen, she just can't feel it? She's just like, I am Stormborn.
And then all of a sudden you see dragons appear.
She's like, Dracarys. And that's it. I don't know. I feel like Obama, when I think back to the 2008 election, the reason Obama was able to differentiate himself is the same reason that we look at the rallies today and we see Obama give a speech and we're like, God, you're awesome. And then we watch Hillary give a speech and we're like, okay, you're trying real hard.
She's not a good speaker.
Yeah.
She's actually a terrible speaker. I mean, there have been polls on, how trustworthy Hillary Clinton is versus Donald Trump. And even though Donald Trump is proven to lie way more than Hillary Clinton lies, people think that Hillary Clinton is not to be trusted. And the reason why is because when she's speaking, everything sounds very calculated. She's very careful. She's very, everything is very thought out before she actually says it. And I get that. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to be taken out of context. People are constantly hounding her. People are constantly on her. But just relax and have a conversation.
The thing is, that calculation is what cost her in
Yeah.
2008 because she does the politically expedient thing pretty much at all times, and we were just talking about that. And it relates back to the second reason, and probably to me the more important reason that Obama was able to differentiate himself from Clinton and Edwards in 2008, it's the record of voting against the Iraq War. And if you look at that specific vote, I don't even think it was whether to go into Iraq or not. It was whether to fund the extended time in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think back on that election, that was it. Obama was able to stand there among senators and say, I voted against it, and you all voted for it, and I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And it feeds into the narrative that we're all talking about and all have been talking about, that feeds into what the DNC did in correlation with Hillary Clinton, which is let's have a long-term plan. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with what people believe or how strongly they believe it. It's we have these tests and they bore out this way, so let's just go along with it at any cost. And I think that's what cost her. She looked around and she was like, well, only he's the only one who's voting against this, and everyone else I'm going to run against that I have to care about is voting for it, so I'm going to vote for it, and we'll just deal with it. But
Yeah.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, now we have Kyle Kulinski on the show, host of Secular Talk. Kyle, how are you?
Hey, Anna. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm doing well considering the fact that today is, I don't want to say the last day that we have to deal with all this nonsense, but hopefully things calm down in regard to rhetoric after the election today. I was talking about this during the first hour of coverage. I was in Reno, Nevada yesterday for the Fusion show. And as I was waiting in line at Starbucks, there were two older white men. I know for sure one of them was from the Cato Institute because he was wearing a little, lanyard thing that had a sign. Mm-hmm. And they were just openly and very transparently talking about their disdain for minorities, for Latinos, for blacks, for Muslims, in the span of 5 minutes.
What kind of things did they say?
Okay, so Latinos have not contributed anything to society. I think they were specifically talking about immigrants, right? All they do is take. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember verbatim what they said. Of course, the standard Muslims are terrorists. They shouldn't be allowed in the country. And then when it came to black individuals, all they want to do is shoot and kill cops. Why does the media even waste their time talking about Black Lives Matter? Wow. That was the kind of stuff that was going on. And it was just so ugly that I couldn't take it anymore. And I turned around and I was like, we can cuss, right? I was like, shut the fuck up.
Bart in the booth is like, sure, I'm on audio.
I know that we're like trying to keep it professional.
And we also have Kyle. Sorry, Kyle. We got into it there.
No, I know. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, Kyle, is because I'm at least excited that hopefully after this election, there will be some sort of strong message about how that kind of language is unacceptable. But I don't know. I could be wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that with Trump, there's a little bit of the cat's out of the bag, and there's no putting it back in. So there's some lines that he crossed where some not too bright people might think, oh, he's just keeping it real. But in reality, he's just keeping it savage. So, for example, during the election, he repeatedly said, I'm going to bring back torture. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring back torture. I'm going to bring back waterboarding. I'm going to do worse than waterboarding. He even said at one point, I'm going to torture, quote, even if it doesn't work.
Yep.
So that shows you it's not even like he's not even trying to put like a veneer of intellectualism over it. He's just like, you know what, I'm going to do it because I'm vicious and I'm barbaric. And I think a lot of people hear that and they go, yes, like finally it's coming out. When like during the neocon era, during the Bush administration, they did it, but they put the veneer over it of like, oh, it's enhanced interrogation. But Trump kind of drops the act and he kind of thinks. He kind of says, you know what, I think that the United States, we're the good guys, and we're the good guys by definition, so no matter what we do is okay, no matter what our enemies do is bad. And he's kind of very clearly divided everything up into, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And like you were listing there before, he launched his campaign by saying, the Mexicans, they're rapists, they're criminals. I assume some are good people. Mm-hmm. I love how he flipped it. Like a normal person would say, like, yeah, some of every group has criminals, but most are good people. He flipped it. He said they're rapists, they're criminals. I assume some are good people. And then, of course, like you kind of alluded to there, I mean, the Muslim ban, 1.6 billion people. We're not going to allow you in the country under my ideal policy. And then what's hilarious is that some people will, go on to say in the next breath, oh, but he's not a bigot. but that's like the definition of bigotry.
Yes.
He's saying, I'm going to keep out 1.6 billion people, and yes, I'm going to say it's close enough to ISIS and Al-Qaeda if you're Muslim, so that's it. Well, look, that is saying I'm going to use policy against all of them because there are some extremists, and that's, I mean, this is kind of what he's let out.
What do you do with Muslims that are currently living in the country? Do you just go ahead and discriminate against them if they're American citizens? Like, none of those policy ideas make sense. And it's interesting because what you hear from the right wing over and over again, whether it be members of the electorate or politicians, is that they just desire the preservation of our Constitution. But they never really talk about what's in the Constitution and how we're supposed to have freedom of religion in the United States. It's not freedom of religion only including the religions that we like. It's freedom of religion. And, you know, we, of course, have certain laws in several states that kind of ban anything that would harm others while you're practicing your religion. But nonetheless, you can't say, we don't like Muslims, we think you're all terrorists, so you're banned. That is not the preservation of our Constitution. That goes directly against our Constitution. Right. Torture, that goes against our Constitution. So it's just interesting because they'll say one thing and then do the opposite, and then they don't get challenged by it.
Right.
Or, yeah.
When you said the fear of calling him a bigot, that the instinct to do that harkens back to what you said about the veneer that people put on the bigotry that they were putting in there before, which is people are afraid to say the word bigot because bigot's such a word, you let it out of the bag. But the same instinct to put the veneer on it before is the same thing that if you I don't know, they're afraid that if they call them a bigot that they've gone too far and they've alienated people, when that is the wall you need to put down, that line in the sand to say this is actual bigotry. We need to call it out before we run the risk of having our words mean nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
right,
not
bigotry, I don't know what it is.
And going back to Trump and the Constitution, Anna, what you were just touching on there, you know, it's funny because Trump gets this, a lot of people view him, a lot of his supporters certainly view him as like, you know, the last bastion of free speech, and he's a free speech warrior and crusader, and he's standing up against all these ultra PC college social justice warriors. But once you dig into Trump's history, you find out the exact opposite is true. I've said it for months now. The dude is a right-wing social justice warrior. He's the right-wing PC police because, for example, he sued Bill Maher over a joke that he made.
Right.
He sued The Onion over a satire piece that they wrote. This is the guy who goes around saying, I want to, quote, open up the libel laws so we can sue the media when they have negative things to say about me. I mean, if it was like a liberal on a college campus saying, I'm going to sue you because you made a joke that hurts my feelings, so I'm literally going to take you to court, everybody would be like, get the fuck over it. What's wrong with you? This is exactly what's wrong with the left, ultra PC, yada, yada. But for some reason, when Trump advocates the most extreme authoritarian policies when it comes to speech, he still somehow has the mantle of, being a free speech crusader. And that's just bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump has been very clear about his disdain for the media, banning or blacklisting certain media outlets from covering his rallies. And so, again, that goes directly against our Constitution. The First Amendment has nothing to do with businesses punishing you for saying something that they don't like. It has nothing to do with average citizens being offended with something that you say. The First Amendment has to do with the government taking action against you because of your speech. And Donald Trump has made it clear that he's an advocate of doing that. I mean, he's already done that when it comes to the media. So, again, this has nothing to do with the Constitution. Donald Trump, I would venture to say, doesn't even really know what the Constitution includes, right?
Oh, no way.
Because it involves reading.
It does involve reading, and based on the way he tweets, I would argue that, literacy is also a little bit of a problem for Donald Trump. But, Kyle, let's move on to a little bit of your predictions. What do you think is going to happen today?
So I did a really long segment on this yesterday, and I have to say that I might have to amend what I said yesterday a little bit, because yesterday my prediction based on the numbers was Hillary Clinton 279. So I thought she was going to take it, but she was going to barely edge it out. And I said I wouldn't be surprised anywhere from 273 to 323 for her. Today, the forecast is a little bit stronger for her. So yesterday, Nate Silver had her chances at 65%. Today, her chances are up to 70%, which I mean, that's a big jump for one day. And what happened was the last round of polls were released, and I think the news that Comey cleared Hillary again on the email scandal might have contributed to that. But I do think Hillary might edge it out. I think it might even be about 300 electoral votes now. But here's the thing I wanted to mention that, I don't feel like gets talked about enough. Trump is putting up a fucking fight, and this race certainly isn't totally over. Mm-hmm. And I think he's been underestimated every single step of the way. So, I mean, we can go all the way back to before the primary. Oh, you know what? He's not even going to win a debate. Well, he won a debate. He's not going to win the second debate. He won the second debate. He's not going to win a single primary. He won a primary. He's certainly not going to, lead in the polls. He led in the polls the entire fucking time. Mm-hmm. He's certainly not going to be the nominee. Oh, fuck, he's the nominee. And then the very next sentence is what? Well, he's certainly not going to be the president.
I know. So, well, if you look into the history, there have been years like this. If you compare selecting Donald Trump as the Republican nominee, you compare that to years like Goldwater, where Goldwater was chosen as the nominee. But if you then look at the electoral maps and all of those, one party picked a total weirdo or a totally weak, what you would conventionally consider as a weak candidate. If you look at the electoral map in those years, it is a landslide, an utter crazy landslide. But as you said, this year, it isn't going to, even if it is a landslide by our definition of landslide, it's not a Mondale year. It's not a Goldwater year. There's no way. In Goldwater's year, he just carried like a thin band of the South. Mm-hmm. Those days are gone. And I am racking my brain to reconcile those two things that doesn't involve some not so latent racism, as you were saying, the veneer turning into a dog whistle that no one could hear until someone came out and shouted racism. It's hard for me to preserve some kind of optimism about the American electorate in the face of this crazy, nearly 50-50, but more like 40-40 electoral map.
Look, I think the hardest part about this election was the huge reality check that people like me got. And the exposure of pure ignorance of members of our electorate. Okay, on both sides, by the way, but dominantly on Trump's side. Some of the field reporting that Jordan Sheridan did, where he went and talked to Trump surrogates or Trump supporters, their lack of knowledge. I mean, the one thing that stood out to me the most was one of his supporters arguing that Huma Abedin might be a traitor to the United States because she has a Muslim-sounding name. There was no evidence whatsoever, okay? But it didn't matter because, she has a Muslim-sounding name, an Arab-sounding name. That's what she said. So she might be a traitor.
So anyway. Anna, I think that's all true, but I'd also add one more element to it, which I think is really important about the Trump voters and, this populist backlash in general, which is with Donald Trump, you actually have a Republican who was willing to say things that there's no way Mitt Romney would have said, and not just the bigotry stuff, which again is true. He takes their coded bigotry a step further. There's no doubt about that. But he's also just way more economically populist than them. So, I mean, you listen to any stump speech he gives, he's hammering the TPP. He's hammering NAFTA. Mm-hmm. He even, on some occasions, comes across as more liberal than Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, which is crazy if you think about it. I mean, he keeps hitting her for corruption. That's not saying he's not corrupt, but certainly his rhetoric on the campaign trail is she's the establishment, I'm anti-establishment. This is a guy who, during the primary, railed against Social Security cuts. That's something that no Republican does, especially in the primary. They're supposed to unanimously agree and say, yeah, we're going to cut Social Security and Medicare. We're Republican assholes. He didn't do that. So this is a guy who, even infrastructure, he said, you know what, I want to stop spending money on the wars, and instead I want to rebuild our infrastructure here. So I feel like that aspect of it is something that has made Trump a more viable candidate than he should be. But also Hillary's lack of an effective response on that stuff has kept this race close. Because, what does Hillary do? I saw one of her ads yesterday. I was watching The Walking Dead, and during the commercial, they played her ad. And which ad did they go with? They went with the one where it's like, Donald Trump saying naughty words and cursing. And then we're all supposed to watch it and go, oh, my goodness, I can't believe that an adult talks like an adult. So instead of hammering him in ways that make sense. Like, oh my God, you just said, quote, we have to take out their families and kill civilians in the Middle East. That's crazy. Yeah. Instead of focusing on that stuff, instead of focusing on policy and highlighting areas where she's clearly better, like with climate change or the Supreme Court, or the fact that he wants to eliminate the FDA and the EPA, instead of hammering on policy, what Hillary did is she kind of ran this like just vague campaign on cliches and platitudes of like, stronger together and old shit like that.
Because you also just described Trump's campaign, which is vagaries and the opposite of platitudes.
Look, all Hillary Clinton did, and by the way, we just spoke to Sam Cedar, and we all agreed on the exact same thing. She didn't have to focus too much on policy, or on policy at all, because as long as you attack his character, or as long as you sit back and you let him attack his own character or expose his own character, you're going to fare pretty well. And she is faring well tonight. But still, it's too close to comfort, according to the polls, if you ask me. Anyway, Kyle Kulinski, thank you so much for joining us. And good luck tonight. Hopefully we get decent results.
All right, you too, guys. Have a good one.
Bye. All right, so...
Here's the thing. Let's talk about irreparable damage that Trump could maybe do. We were in a cab in Reno, which is the beginning of a great story. And I know the guy hadn't farted right before we got in the cab. But I know that the cab smelled like farts. This is my biggest fear about Trump's presidency, but Trump's having run.
That cabs might smell like fart?
Did he fart enough in the cab of America? Because he did it all the time, and I had a car for 150,000 miles, and I farted in it so much that when I gave it over to someone else, I was sad because I knew it smelled like farts. Did he fart enough in the car of America that even if he loses, when he hands that car over to Hillary for the presidency, will it still smell like fart? And in what kind of farts will it smell like? Like, I think so. Did he do such irreparable damage? And will we find that magic air freshener, that Febreze that doesn't counteract odors, but somehow neutralizes odors? That's my question.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if it's irreparable harm, because that means there's no way of repairing it. I think that what Donald Trump has done is he has made racism, bigotry, sexism, America's real views on sexual assault and rape very open and transparent. And so we now know what people really think about these issues. And I think that in the very least, now that we know we have these problems and we've admitted that we have these problems, we could hopefully take some steps to solve them. That's me being super idealistic, and I know that it might be a little naive. But what I actually wanted to talk about a little bit is...
Not farts.
But the stench of this election wafting into the weeks after. Because Donald Trump has already filed lawsuits against... Broward County in Florida, and also Nevada, because in Nevada, he is alleging that early voting places closed the polls later than they were supposed to, which allowed for people who typically vote Democratic to vote after the polls were supposed to be closed. So it shows you two things. First of all, he is not expecting to win tonight. Okay, so we're talking about battleground states that are very important, and he's expecting to lose in those battleground states. It's also showing you that after this election, there might be a fight on the Republican side. There might be, allegations of a rigged election, whatever it is. We'll see what happens. But I don't think it's going to end tonight.
How can you argue a rigged election if they didn't enforce the rules? Like, if they weren't like, stop. It's not rigged. It's like you're arguing against more people voting.
That's exactly right, by the way. And what Clark County is alleging, and Clark County is what they're specifically focusing on, is no. The only thing we did is we allowed individuals who had waited in line that entire time to go ahead and cast their ballots, even though the polling station was closed. It was closed. We're just letting the people who have been waiting in line to finish voting. I just think it's a really interesting argument from the Trump camp. And, based on some commentary from legal analysts, it seems that he's unlikely to win that type of challenge. But we'll see how it goes. We really will, because I'm just worried. I'm worried about what's going to happen after tonight.
That's not a new strategy from at least people on the right, because when you look at the numbers, there's just way more Democrats / people identifying as liberal as there are people in the country who identify as conservative.
Oh, man, Republicans love to go after anything that would harm Democrats from voting.
Yeah, but in the same way, what we see is both sides going after things that would benefit them. The difference is that the Democrats seem to always be arguing like, let's just make sure that everyone can vote.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that I find it easier to side with. I went and voted today, and I don't know, I don't get very emotional, don't have many feelings, but I was like voting, and I'm like using the tiny stupid pen, just go like, because we just have like a stamp marker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. People died for this stuff. In a very real way, not like I'm making fun of it.
All right. We got to go to Nomi Konst. She is a political analyst and communication strategist, also founder and executive director of the Accountability Project. Ms. Konst, I apologize that you don't have a lot of time to talk to us, but thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry.
Thanks. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, good. All right. So tell me a little bit about your predictions for tonight. I asked most of our guests, and I'm curious to see if maybe you have a different interpretation of how tonight's going to go.
I think that most of us at this point are actually doing really well with predictions, despite our during the primaries being so far off. I think one thing is that for the most part, general elections, there's some really great data, give or take a couple states where polling isn't great. But for the most part, I mean, listen, yes, there's going to be the secret Trump voter. There's also going to be the secret Hillary voter. And every qualified pollster I've spoken to realizes that those numbers pretty much cancel each other out. So I think it's going to be a big win for Hillary. Really, it comes down to the Senate. It's pretty much what everybody's saying. I've been in Philadelphia. I was going to different polling locations to see if there were any poll watchers. Turns out nobody reported any. Talked to the DNC lawyers. No real threats for poll watchers. It was a lot of talk on Donald Trump's part to keep voting down. But Democrats are used to this. They staff up with lawyers. They have a really great operation. So I think it's going to be a good night. Now, does that mean that we're going to win states like Pennsylvania, the Senate seat? I don't know. But she doesn't have the battle that he has. He has to win basically every swing state that's in his must-win category, meaning Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania. This is Nevada. He has to win those states. He has to win Arizona to win.
Yep.
Hillary doesn't. She can win Florida and pretty much win this election. So it's looking very, very good for Democrats, and I think that's why it puts progressives in a really strong position right now, because if we start thinking right now rather than on January 21st about what to do to influence our next president, this is the time to do it, when she's selecting people to join her administration.
What do you think about some of the challenges that Trump's camp is hurling toward Nevada and Florida? He claims that Nevada broke some laws by keeping polling stations for early voting open later than they should have. They're arguing that absentee ballots were not sent to Republican voters in Florida, Broward County to be specific. What do you make of all of this? Do you think that it's much to do about nothing, or do you think that, hey, maybe there was some wrongdoing here?
Listen, every election there's going to be some issues. It's just the way our systems work. It's state by state. Every state manages it on their own. The FEC doesn't really enforce a lot of this stuff as they should. But the reality of the situation is, if it's worth the fight, the RNC will fight that fight. They've got the resources. Once Donald Trump loses, all of his money is going to go away. I don't think he's going to be investing money in lawyers and fighting this stuff. He's not. This is, he knows that he will lose. And he'll lose because he doesn't have the RNC support. He'll lose because he wasn't on message. He'll lose because he didn't have the operation he needed, and he played games with Roger Stone about voter suppression rather than really garnering his support. If he loses, it's not going to be because a few people weren't registered properly or didn't get their absentee ballots in time. He will lose because he's a bad candidate who does not stick to the message and does not work with his party, and that's why he'll lose. Also, the Democratic map was already in favor of Hillary Clinton, with everything else against Donald Trump. Add that to it.
So I get the sense that you are much more positive of Hillary Clinton, and I'm curious, what do you think?
I was a Bernie surrogate.
I know you're a Bernie surrogate, but I just, as a Bernie surrogate, I'm curious to see, which policies you're concerned about when it comes to Hillary Clinton.
You cut out for a second there. I'm in a train station. I apologize.
No worries.
I thought you said what policies you think we can influence her on.
not influence her on, but which policies do you have the biggest problems with?
Her environmental policy, her banking policies, you know, where she's accepting money from. You can't be for one thing or against one thing and accept money from the interests that are in opposition to that. And I think that that's what voters really saw. You know, emails, all that other stuff, the way that the DNC is run. I honestly believe that that's going to clean itself up. I think that they were shocked. I think WikiLeaks is a big part of it. I think the fact that Bernie surrogates took over half the convention and the Democratic platform meetings. But for her, you know, she's going to get a lot of pressure from the left on the Dakota Access Pipeline, on environmental issues, on where she's accepting money, and I think that you know, the DNC was a fundraising organization. That's what it became, and with that, you know, they were really focused on fundraising for the presidency, and didn't focus enough on local elections. So she can't be the best president she can be without having all those seats to support her. And I think we all know that. You know, look at Evan Bayh. Evan Bayh is basically the best Republican the Democrats have. And he's in a weak position because of it. Those games just don't work anymore. The country's more progressive. The party's much more progressive. She's going to have to start working with progressives.
All right. Nomiki Konst, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
You too. All right. How much longer do we have before we got to go to break? All right, we got to wrap. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the interviews. Do you have any final thoughts, Brett?
No, I have zero final thoughts. I was just sadly contemplating the future of America. I mean, for me, everything that everyone has said has signaled massive party realignment in America. What it is someone who polls a lot and is very clinical about their approach, that's Hillary Clinton, versus an idiot savant who's able to instinctively, through his egomania, just sniff out pockets of voters and appeal to them broadly. And those are the opposite. This is to steal from Bryan Cranston, this is a Shakespearean situation where you have two nemeses and they're going against each other, and it seems like people who did their homework are going to win.
All right, guys, we got to go to break, but later on in the show, we will talk specifically and in great detail about the ballot measures and how they're doing, and we will, of course, give you results from the election. Stick around. We'll see you.